OneX Developer Podcast.
All right, we're rolling. All right, welcome to episode 0 of the OneX Developer Podcast with your host, Colin and Brendan. So I'm Colin, this voice is Colin.
This voice is Brendan.
And we're two 1X developer. Maybe we should call it the 2X Developer Podcast, actually.
I think it's still 1X even if there's two of us. I think it's like we're each 1X. This is a meeting of 1X developers, you know?
Right. This is a congregation of... This is the 1X developer movement.
Right.
Is what this is. So what we mean by that is that, it's not that we're against 10X developers or anything like that. Well, maybe. I mean, I think I'm against the 10X, the concept of a 10X developer.
I think the concept is a little... I think it's a myth, first of all. Mm-hmm. I think it's a little flawed, yeah.
Yeah. So we're 1X developers as in we might know we know how to exit Vim. we use MacBooks and we're just kind of two regular guys who code.
Yeah. I feel like we're not the superheroes of the team when they're looking for a code ninja or whatever. That's not us.
Yeah. So one of the things that I want to get out of this really is to just kind of learn more, either from you or from guests if we do that, or from the community. What are other 1X developers working on? What are they struggling with? What are they curious about? That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I feel like in talking about this podcast already, we've come up with some interesting projects to talk about. And yeah, I'm hoping that as things get rolling, people send things in, and we kind of have a dialogue about what other people are working on. Maybe get tipped off to some interesting projects, things like that.
I feel like that's kind of a long way to say that this is a podcast about whatever we want to talk about. But hey, that's kind of what it is.
Should we talk about who we are and how we met?
Yeah, I guess we should. So Brendan and I worked together. What was that, 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think
at
least.
Yeah. So Brendan really taught me a lot of development, because that was my first job out of college when we worked together, actually. I don't know. Should I talk about I guess my background in development really started in college, actually, which is weird. I think a lot of people, either they are self-taught people from way before that, or they suck. I guess that's some of the 10X developer myth coming through, right? But I did write some code in high school and stuff, but it probably wasn't until I took an actual programming 101 class in college that I guess I'm just part of the small group of people that actually learns well in a classroom. And yeah, I studied engineering, actually, but eventually I found that software was kind of where the jobs were at, and that's kind of what was interesting. It was kind of what I ended up being good at. Then I started doing that, and now I'm a 1X developer.
Yeah, I'm still at the job that Colin and I worked at together way back when. I've been programming since I was very young. I never went to school for it. I kind of took the long way around to eventually get a programming job. Kind of, I don't know, later in life. I'd worked some other jobs first, so maybe that's because I'm a 1X developer. But yeah, I've always been interested in it, and but just never, I don't know, I never pursued it in school. So I didn't pursue anything in school. It didn't go to college. So, but yeah, I think one of the interesting things at our job is that we do, full stack everything. So that's I don't know. That's interesting to me. It's interesting to like touch all the different parts of a system. I'd say I kind of have a preference for back end stuff these days.
Yeah.
I think I've learned that about myself, that I prefer the back end to the front end. Front end just feels so fiddly all the time.
Yeah, I get that.
And it's always changing.
Yeah, it is always changing. Yeah, I think I feel that. But I don't know, you're sounding like a 10x developer a little bit saying that, you know?
No, not at all. I think you can know a little bit about a lot of things and still be a 1x developer. In fact, I think the 10x developer, I think that's maybe like one of the hallmarks, right? Is that you know every little thing. And I think that as a 1x developer, I think I just know enough.
Yeah.
Enough to get the job done a lot of times.
Yeah, I think that's the 1x developer mind. Well, there's a few things there about the 1x developer mindset, right? First of all, like this idea that like we all have different stories, you know, we're not all like, not everybody. I think that's something that held me back a lot early on, was like I decided I didn't want to study computer science because I think I had this idea that like computer science is for weirdo nerds that like were, you know, already knew how to code, I guess, and were programming at a really young age. And I think that's something that pushed me more into engineering. But then ultimately I was like, no, this is what I like doing. That's part of why I think, like, on a philosophical level, I'm like anti-X, 10x developer, sort of, you know. I think there's this idea of what you should be, and that's, very few people are that, I think.
You felt like computer science was for nerds, but electrical engineering was not?
I don't know. I think I thought that, like, well, okay, people who go into electrical engineering, I'd say at least half of them openly say, yeah, this is a good job. This is a way to make a lot of money, right? Whereas I think a lot of people have this idea that a computer science degree is, yeah, I'm Neo from the Matrix, and I was born that way, right? And it's my identity, and it's who I am.
Interesting.
Do you see that at all?
It's definitely not my impression. Yeah, no, I kind of have a different view on it. Maybe because I just, like I said, I was young and interested in it, and I just kind of like would pick stuff up. And I think because of that, I have a very kind of like fractured view of programming. I think a lot of times I just kind of like I said, I was being kind of self-deprecating, but really, like, oftentimes I learn just enough to get the job done, and I don't have a very complete view of it. But I think it felt totally possible to me as a kid to just like pick up C++ and like learn a little bit of it. And obviously I wasn't a master or anything in junior high, but like I had enough that I could make stupid little games and like entertain myself, you know? It always felt attainable.
That's how it should be.
Oh yeah, especially like with Python and stuff these days. I think computer science is a great field to get into for kids because the barrier to entry is so low. Like if you have a computer, just throw Python on there and get to work.
But what about all the robots that can just do that?
I think that's a discussion for another podcast episode.
Yeah, that's a few episodes.
Maybe we don't solve that problem in episode 0, but actually my views on that have changed in I'd say in the last year or so. There was a time when I said everyone should learn a little programming, and these days I'm not so sure about that. So, Colin, do you have any ideas about things we could talk about on this podcast?
Yeah, I've got a few ideas actually.
Oh, nice.
The first one is the AI. Should I just read them? Why am I reading the ideas to the podcast? Well, I guess if this is episode 0, that's a good idea.
Sure. Here's some things we might talk about.
These are things to look forward to in further episodes. General AI topics. Is software getting worse? Which is a big thing people talk about. Why do we use Agile if everyone hates it? That could get spicy.
Yeah. Yep.
Microservices and the cyclical nature of hype. Basically, I don't know if you've seen this. Like, a lot of people are not into microservices anymore. I've seen this online a lot. A lot of people are like, why did we ever do this? And I kind of want to talk about that whole thing of like, okay, we get really into separating things, and then we get really into bringing things together, right? We want a language that does everything, and then a couple years later we want a specific language for every specific thing. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of things like that where it just goes in this never-ending cycle of we hate this thing, and then we love this thing, and then we hate this thing.
Yeah. I do know what you mean by that. I have some thoughts on that.
So there's that. Is testing overrated? There's been a lot of... That's kind of a similar one. A lot of people are like anti-TDD now.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Like, not really, like, not anti-testing, but they just think like, okay, this whole write a unit test for every single thing, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
What is the perfect programming language?
That's a good one.
Adding fun to your editor. I want to talk about that one.
Adding fun.
Adding fun to your editor.
What's a fun thing in an editor? What's
Like, I think I told you about it, VS Code Pets. So it's an extension in Visual Studio Code, and it puts, like, pets in your editor. So there's a little window in the bottom left where like, your tabs are. Or not your tabs, but your... what's that? What's that?
Like your panes?
We need to make this a video podcast, by the way, so people know what I'm doing. I'm doing.
We got to learn that gestures,
Yeah.
hand gestures, don't come across in audio.
But in the side pane, I guess there at the bottom it adds like a little section, and it's got like your little. You can make like a cat, and he's hanging out, and like doing that, and then also
Like a Tamagotchi?
yeah, like a little Tamagotchi guy. You can interact with them, and you can have them play with a ball and stuff.
Huh.
So it's kind of an interesting philosophical thing. Like, I feel like a lot of people would look at that and say, "Dude, this is a work tool. What are you doing?" But on the other hand, it's like, I don't know. I almost feel like it's mental health awareness month. Like, should we, let's have fun with our stuff. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, good. I have some thoughts on that, and I feel like you and I might be on different pages with that. That might be a good one.
Is there such a thing as a 10x developer? That's boring, honestly.
I think, especially from a podcast called 1X Developer, that might be interesting to touch on.
We do kind of have to, I guess. Fun projects versus productive projects.
Yeah, really good.
Is DevOps real? You ever look at your notes and you're like, what did I mean by that?
What does that mean?
I'm not sure what that means.
All the time.
But is DevOps real? Am I stupid for not liking Docker?
Oh. I haven't used a lot of Docker, so I might not have much to contribute.
I feel like
to
I'm
that.
probably just bad at it.
But I mean, speaking of cycles, though, I feel like Docker's kind of fallen out of favor.
Yeah, it's a cyclical thing. And I think the big thing for me is that and I think part of it is the hype, is that, like, there was a time where it was like everything needs to be Dockerized.
Yeah.
Everything needs to be Dockerized. And then sometimes I'm like fighting my Docker container and stuff, and I'm like, I have Python installed on my computer. I can just type Python into my terminal and run stuff, right? Like, I don't know. And like I was talking, so before we started recording, I was talking about the new Apple Silicon chips and how some of those have issues that the Intel chips didn't have, right? And one of those is my Docker container, right? I've had issues with my Docker container because I'm on this processor as opposed to other people on my team. But the whole point of Docker was that everyone can run the same shit without any issues. Yeah. Oh, are we going to say curse words on here?
Yeah. I think we do swear.
We do?
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing is, like, I don't want to, like... No, this is probably adults listening to this. I just don't want to, like, alienate any type of, like, part of,
I feel like our target audience are people who are working... I don't know. Maybe that's not true. Maybe there are people learning about programming. Okay, we'll keep it clean.
I mean, maybe like... I think, like, the S word is probably fine.
Okay.
But probably not... there's certain words or certain topics that are going to make people really uncomfortable. Which... I don't think we're going to get into any of those. But you know what I'm saying.
Yes. Yeah, we'll keep it pretty... We'll start keeping it pretty family friendly.
Yeah. Oh, this one's good. The Art Thief and Security. It's about a book called The Art Thief that I just read. It's about a guy who stole a bunch of art. And it raised a lot of interesting... It's just, looking at it through a cybersecurity lens, kind of changes it. Like, it's... I don't know. I think there's some stuff to dig into there.
Did the theft have to do with cybersecurity?
No, he stole. It was all physical stuff that he stole, but it just like so. I taught a cybersecurity course once, and I used a lot of analogies. Right, I talked about like a castle with walls and this sort of thing, and I just think that I don't know. I guess I was kind of. It gave me more analogies. I think.
Okay.
Is what it is. Damn, it's like I want to like get into this episode right now. You know.
Let's make that episode 1.
So subscribe. Dab on that like button.
Smash like and subscribe.
Oh, this is another interesting one. Politics in your terms of service. Have you seen this ever?
No.
I know probably the most famous one, and this isn't terms of service, but it's like there's another term for something similar to that. Like community, not community guidelines, something like that for SQLite. Have you ever read that? So like SQLite has and it's not terms of service, but there's another term similar to that, and it's basically like the Ten Commandments, and it's super religious. Like it has religious undertone that like, and it's actually not like I stress that it's not the terms of service because it's not like you can't use SQLite if you don't abide by that.
Okay.
But they use that as like guideline. I guess they kind of want to promote that style of living, of like respecting God or all these things. It's longer than the Ten Commandments, but
what are we talking? Is it just like a file in the repo that's like tencommandments.md or something?
No. Let me find it. SQLite. I'm just gonna search TOS, but that's not what it is. Okay. My results are not what I wanted. What? I'm trying to think of what the word is. Code of Ethics. The SQLite Code of Ethics.
Oh, okay.
It was originally called the Code of Conduct and was created for the purpose of filling in a box on supplier registration forms submitted to the SQLite developers by some clients. However, we subsequently learned that Code of Conduct has a very specific and almost sacred meaning to some readers, a meaning to which this document does not conform. Therefore, this document was renamed to Code of Ethics, as we encouraged to do by Rule 71, blah, 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 blah. The purpose, the founder of SQLite, with all the current developers at the time when this document was composed, have pledged to govern their interactions with each other and their clients, and with the larger SQLite user community in accordance with the instruments of good works from Chapter 4 of the Rule of St. Benedict, which is linked here. This Code of Ethics has proven its mettle in thousands of diverse communities for over 1,500 years and has served as a baseline for many civil law codes since the time of Charlemagne. And then, the rules are do not steal, do not covet, bury the dead, visit the sick. But yeah, this has been here for years. I didn't know until recently.
Isn't the Code of St. Benedict like a monastic thing? That's how they do things in monasteries?
I think so, yeah. I think that's why they're saying this has worked for 1,500 years. But if you look at the Code of Benedict, or the Rule of St. Benedict, it's slightly different from this, but they're very close. Anyway.
Is there anything about indexes?
Anything about indexes?
Foreign key constraints?
yeah. Some stuff about Vim versus Emacs, for sure. But anyway, there's that, and there's another really interesting example I came across recently on GitHub that I'd like to get into. Okay, I've got 4 more. How do you estimate work?
That's a really good one for what we were talking about with motivation and productivity and that stuff. Like, that's an extraordinarily hard thing in developer world, and I think it's not getting any easier. I'll just say that.
I completely suck at it.
It's so hard.
And I feel like on my current team, we're more... So when we worked together, I feel like sprints were not... if you didn't get everything done in a sprint, it wasn't a big deal. Mm-hmm. But at my current team, there's a little bit more pressure of like, you made these sprint commitments, they should be done by the end of the sprint. And it sucks because it's like, I really don't know what I can get done in 2 weeks, especially if it's something I haven't really worked with before,
Yeah.
Some bugs, it takes you freaking weeks to find that semicolon that's missing. You never know.
Do you find yourself overcommitting then, and you have stuff on your to-do list for the sprint that's not?
Generally, yeah. It's generally I'm underestimating how much time something's going to take.
I think that's one of the really hard things about programming is exactly what you're talking about. You don't know, a lot of times you don't know how hard it's going to be to fix something until you invest the time to like really look into it and see what the problem is. And that's its own time commitment, is like looking into something.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the black boxes. You don't know how long that part is going to even take.
Yeah. So, where are we going to post this? Is this going to be on Spotify? Apple Podcasts? I would hope those two at least.
That's a good question. I assume there are like podcast distribution things at this point, right?
I think so. Because I hear a lot of podcasts, they say like, we're available on all major platforms. So I think they go through something like that.
Isn't it Libsyn? Isn't that a thing?
I haven't heard of that, but
I think it's like it makes the RSS feed available and all the places can pick it up.
Yeah. Anyway, whatever you're listening to this on, put in the comments how to estimate work, and I'll read that.
It also occurs to me we need a theme song.
Oh yeah, we're gonna need an intro song. And I was also thinking we could put this on YouTube and just put. I've seen some guys do that, and they just put like an image, or like a little equalizer thing.
Yeah.
Or it could become a video podcast.
I'm down for either of those. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think it hurts to put it on YouTube also. You just, make an image and put the audio up.
What we need to do is we need to like snip out all of our hottest takes in video format and put that on Twitter and TikTok. That's how we'll get people to listen to our podcast.
Just the hot takes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not on TikTok. I'll need to.
Neither am I. But we would have to make a 1X developer TikTok account.
Yeah.
Or 1X developer 324. Whatever.
To check and make sure it's not taken.
So similar to how to estimate work, this is drawing chalk X's in text spikes. Should I explain drawing chalk X's? I feel like that's gonna be too much of a tangent. But there's an old story about drawing chalk X's and it has to do with like work and how work might appear like it's not much work, but it's actually a lot.
Okay. I don't know the story.
So it's a story about an electrical engineer named Steinmetz. You should be able to find it. Should I just explain it?
Sure.
Okay. So this is something I learned in college. So there was a guy named Steinmetz. He was an electrical engineer, and he had a lot of health issues. Actually, he was like 4 feet tall because he had some sort of developmental issue. And I don't know if that's why, but he also was like a huge asshole. So he was just angry all the time, basically. And there's a lot of stories about him just being a jerk to people. But the one that's always stuck with me is, so some company was having an issue with their system, and they called Steinmetz as like a contractor to come investigate what was wrong. And he goes into this factory, whatever it is, and he finds he goes to like a transformer and puts a chalk X on this like metal plate, on like a transformer or whatever. And then he just leaves. I don't think he even said anything to anybody. And so the guys who called him, they go and they look at the thing, and they see this chalk X on the side of this thing, and they take off the plate, and underneath the plate there's like a component there, and that component was what was failing, that was broken. So they replace it and it works. So they get a bill from Steinmetz for $10,000, and so they say they reply like, you drew a chalk X. Can you send us an itemized bill for this? Because we're kind of confused about what the billing strategy here.
Yeah.
And so he replies with an itemized bill, and it says drawing chalk X, $1. Knowing where to draw chalk X, $9,999.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the conclusion of the story. I assume they paid him the $10,000. But the moral, or at least what I take away from it, is how, it might look like somebody didn't really do anything, but they actually did a lot, right? And I mean, it was enough of a problem for them that they called this guy who they know is expensive. So I don't know. It definitely applies to software, right? Where really, I'm not doing anything strenuous. I'm sitting here typing, pushing buttons on a computer, but figuring it out is the hard part. That's what you get paid to do, right?
Right. And I think that applies to a lot of things, even beyond software, but anything that kind of is classifiable as knowledge work or whatever, right?
Yeah. Your doctor, like, you don't pay them to hit your knee with the thing.
Yeah.
I always wondered, like, what do they do what if you hit my knee and my knee doesn't, like, what do you do?
Straight to the hospital.
Like, do I get a new knee? I guess it's a neurological thing.
Yeah, I think, well, I don't think they're just looking for, like, did it move or did it not move? It's like, it has something to do with speed also, right?
Oh.
I think if your reflexes are slow, you're getting old and crapping out.
So why did they always do that to me when I was, like, 4?
I think it's just to make sure you're not getting old and slow at 4 years old. But I think, I don't, now that you say that, I'm not even sure I'm right about this.
I actually asked my doctor one time, and she said something about like neurological or nerve damage or something like that.
Okay.
But it still kind of seems like, I don't know. I feel like if I had nerve damage in my legs, I would know. Maybe not, though.
I mean, I think especially for a 4-year-old, it might be hard to express that, right? They might just think that, like, tingly legs are normal.
But, I mean, she's drawing chalk X's. To me, it looks like she's just drawing an X, but she's got, like, a whole method to how she's hitting my knee with that thing.
And a lot of years of, like, study in medical school and all that behind it.
Yeah. Burnout and feeling unfulfilled. That's classic.
Yeah. I got thoughts.
And then that's the last one. This last one is a note I just took that you were talking about. Tech everywhere in all fields. So
no, that's great, man.
Those are all ideas I've been jotting down.
I vote Art Thief for the first one. Sounds like you got some ideas for that one.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I also recommend reading it. I forget the author's name, but it's cool. Pretty short too.
We'll have
The Art Thief.
Have our assistant look it up.
Yeah.
Hey, can you look up The Art Thief?
Ask ChatGPT to summarize it.
That's a good idea.
Or you just read the wiki page.
I kind of like the idea of having AI summarize things. I actually have not done that before. Does it work pretty well?
Summarizing, I use it to summarize article, so Kagi actually has a summarizer tool that's leverages AI, and it's pretty cool for certain things. I think what happens is I typically use it when I feel like an article is going to be bullshit. So a lot of them, the summary is like, it doesn't really say anything. You know what I mean? Like the article was kind of like more of an opinion piece, like not really, it's kind of a fluff thing. So I think that's just the article sucking, not the tool sucking.
Shouldn't it be able to summarize a crappy article?
Yeah, no, and it does. But I just mean, like, I read the summary and I'm like, okay, is the tool failing here, or is there, like, actually nothing to get out of this article? You know what I mean?
What you mean. Yeah. Gotcha.
But, yeah, I think it's pretty good at summarizing stuff. It's really good at recommendations for stuff. I've done this a few times where I say, like, okay, here's 7 movies I like a lot. Recommend me some other movies. And it's usually pretty good. Usually it recommends me other movies I've already seen. It's not good at, like, recommending, like, less popular stuff, which makes sense if you think about how it's been trained, right?
Exactly.
It's gonna see the things it's seen frequently.
I think that's like a huge problem with all of the LLM stuff, is just if it's predicting the next thing, it's going to lead to this kind of like homogeneous thing that we're all watching and learning from, and then watching the same stuff.
Yeah. So when I say I really like The Matrix, it's like, okay, get this. They made 3 more of those movies.
Yeah.
That can be my hot take of the day to put on Twitter. I think those movies are all pretty good. Obviously, I think the first one is the best, but I know a lot of people hate the sequels, but I think they're being too harsh. I like those movies.
I've only seen the first one.
Okay. Well.
Terrible podcasting. Sorry. We'll edit that out.
No. I think I recommend them. If you're into the Matrix like universe and what it has to just don't go into it like, okay, I'm going to see something as great as the Matrix, you know.
Yeah. When did the fourth one come out though? It was like way later than the other.
Yeah,
ones, right?
it was like just a couple years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
But that one, I like that one too. Are we gonna become a movie podcast real quick? Like,
Well, so we're gonna have a lot more moments like that. If we become a movie podcast, we're gonna have a lot of moments where I say, "Oh, I haven't seen that."
oh, okay.
I haven't seen a lot of movies.
I think my favorite podcast moments are when people get off topic.
Yeah.
And actually, one of my most frustrating things, other than when the audio sucks, is that there was one podcast I listened to for a while. It was called Show Me the Meaning, and it was a podcast about movies and about kind of the themes of movie, like underlying themes of storytelling and stuff. And constantly in that, they were very strict about it being every episode being 1 hour. So they would constantly do this thing where they were like, okay, well, let's put a button on that and we can revisit it in a later episode. And they never did. And it's like, they would only do that when it was about to get into something really good. You know, when a guy's like, you don't like that movie? And it's like, that's what I come here for. Yeah. You know what I mean? I want to hear that.
I think that's when personalities come out, right? Is, you know, you can start in on one topic and you guys can kind of like talk about that topic. But I think people's personalities really come out when they're a little bit more off guard. And it's like why Hot Ones is fun, right? People are a little bit off guard and like... That's when things are fun and interesting and people's personalities really come out, and it's not just that you're on the topic that you started talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm with you.
But then again, you don't really see popular podcasts that are like just general talking about everything much anymore. I think in the earlier days you saw more of those, where it was just like we're two guys who talk about stuff.
Aren't a lot of comedy podcasts like that?
I guess, yeah.
I mean, they are trying to be funny and they're trying out bits and stuff like that, but there's not really, other than that, there's not really a topic. Like, David Cross's podcast doesn't have, like, you know, other than trying to be funny.
Yeah, there's some. Yeah.
Well, I vote we wrap up episode 0. Check the recording, make sure that it's actually working as we expect it, and then let's record another one.
Another one?
Yeah.
Are we gonna get into the Art Thief right now?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, nice.
What? It's only 6 o'clock, 6:30.
Yeah, dude.
You got time?
Yeah. And I read that I think half an hour to 1 hour is like peak successful podcast timing for per episode.
Okay.
So I think we're at 45 minutes.
All right.
What's our thing we say at the end of an episode?
Yeah, we should have thought of that before, I guess. We'll record it.
1x that. Yeah, it'd be a little thing we can record.
We need someone with like a big monster jam.
1x.
Love it. All right. Yeah, we'll call this one, and then we'll pick up the other one, and we'll put a theme song at the beginning.
Nice.
1X Developer Podcast.
Hey everybody, this is Colin. First and foremost, I want to thank you all for listening to this episode of the 1X Developer Podcast, and let you know that if you have any questions, comments, or if you just want to tell us about your day, you can reach us at X, formerly known as Twitter, at 1X Developer Podcast. We're also on YouTube at 1X Developer Podcast. You can email us if you're weird at 1xdeveloperpodcast@protonmail.com. And lastly, don't forget to follow, subscribe, all that stuff, so you don't miss any further episodes of the 1X Developer Podcast. Thanks so much. See you next time.